What's grounded, fam? It's your boy Johnny Gio. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Grounded Phoenix podcast. Joining me today is the lovely Alex,
Oh,
all the way from
lovely.
Canada. What's grounded, Alex?
Nothing much.
Big chillin'. Hi. See, you got your sober shirt on. That's what's up.
Sober period.
All day, every day. So, you were telling me that you guys are celebrating something over there.
Yeah, it's May 2-4 long weekend. So it's the Queen's birthday. It's May 2-4 weekend for me growing up. This is my fifth one that I'm clean and sober. But you could
That's
just
right.
imagine the shit show it was. Honestly, it's just a party weekend. Not that I needed any excuse or any long weekend or any excuse or any holiday to get totally shit faced, because it was just a 24/7 thing for me, right?
Right. So it's your birthday today then. You're the
No,
queen, right?
not Queen Alexandra.
But speaking of sobriety, I know you just got your fourth year chip.
Yeah,
Congratulations on
my
that. How you feel
4 year
about
done.
it?
Honestly, you know what? It's really funny because this was actually one of my hardest years. I just went through a lot of shit there at the tail end. Really proud of myself for getting it. Obviously, I
Yeah.
didn't know 4 years ago, 4 years and 1 month ago, because now it's 4 years and 1 month. But, I didn't know my life would be this way today. Had you told me this, I would have told you to go fuck yourself, honestly. But, it just shows me, I was at a certain point and a certain juncture in my journey that something had to give. So I've gone back to basics. I'm redoing a round of steps. I got a new sponsor. I got a transformational coach and did some mindset transformation
Mm,
work. For me,
mm,
obviously, recovery is a transformative process in and of itself. It's
yeah.
ongoing, daily, God willing, lifelong, and I'm in this for the long haul. But I recognize, I'm a work in progress, and I'm gonna be working on myself
Yeah.
day in, day out for the rest of my fucking life. So it's not just about a year, year one doing the work. It's continuous every fucking day for me, right? Putting in the work, but reaping the rewards.
Exactly. I love the way you put that because, as much as we'd like to think like we're close to perfect, we're not. And we always have that work to put in. And later on in the podcast, I want to talk about Sober Active Canada, which is your nonprofit organization, because I know that's big out there. And I really want you to talk about it and explain to how you
Yeah.
got about that vision. And I know you're all about the Sober Active community and just the intensity that you bring all the time. It's just like the energy is just extremely, and how do you call that, like just contagious. Okay, so I want you to talk about that for sure. But so I've heard your story a couple times, and by the way, thank you for sharing at the Team 12 meeting. I know we talked about it, but I think you did great. One thing that I want to just start off with is like the traumatic experiences that we go through early on, because I know for me that was a lot of things that happened on in my childhood. I don't want to say
Hmm.
that's where it stemmed from, but it definitely fueled it. And then later on we could talk about whether for you, even if you didn't experience those traumatic experiences, would you still be an addict? Because I feel like sometimes just because we went through those experiences doesn't mean we were probably not going to be end up an alcoholic or an addict. But can you just touch on
Yeah.
like your experiences,
Yeah.
traumatic
So,
experiences?
so my own personal experiences, and again, going back to recovery is a transformative process. Obviously, the further along I get in my recovery, uncovering, discovering, and recovering myself
Mm,
on the daily, the deeper I go, the more profound I go, the more introspection I do, the more retrospection I do, and what would have caused, or what were precursors, or what led to my addictions. And I mean, I'm, it's not only cocaine and alcohol, it's also codependency, emotional addiction, love addiction, sex addiction,
mm,
um, from a very young age, you know, and like we say, the problem was never the drugs and the alcohol. Those were just the solutions to my fucking problems. But the further along I get in my recovery, you know, I'm starting to really explore some traumatic events in my life, as well as, you know, the deeper issues, the deeper underlying issues. My father was an alcoholic and an addict. He's also Black. And it's really funny because at the beginning, like when I was in year one, I'd always start off my shares with that. And I'd say he depicted every stereotype of a Black man. But the further along I get again, you know, it was just the way he was raised, his history, his belief system. Unfortunately, you know, also systemic racism, like all that, you know, combined. He was one of my first, he was, God bless his soul, you know, he couldn't do for him what I've been able to do for us. While he was here, you know, he never found that better way of life. He did die an alcoholic and an addict 10 years ago. But you know what? I now realize, you know, his trials, his plights and his tribulations and what he went through, you know, and he loved me the best way that he could.
Yeah.
However, I have daddy abandonment issues. You know, he was a very absent father, a non-present father. He was never that male figure that I needed in my life, you know, and I recognize that today. So that leads me to, you know, at the young age of 10, hanging out with 20-year-old men, losing my virginity at the age of 13, always seeking that male figure. And it's funny because all my relationships have been codependent relationships, and I haven't been in that many, but I've slept with countless amounts of men. Like it's not just like on two hands, you know. Over time, especially in active addiction, you know, that was one of my things. It was par for course. Every night was a different guy. But I'm starting to notice, you know, I was seeking that male figure, and it's funny because even in all my codependent relationships, they were all very much like my father.
Oh.
You know, and as much as I was saying then, they're so emotionally damaged, I was emotionally damaged too. You know, that's what I come to realize today, in retrospect. Also, you know, me being of mixed origin. So that's something in a podcast about a year and a half ago. We were talking because the interviewer was actually biracial as well. And it struck me right there. Holy shit, I've had an identity crisis from such a young age. So I only started exploring that part of my story, you know, 3 years into recovery. It's something that I still do a lot of exploration on and a lot of discovering. And that definitely led, you know, to my need to be validated, accepted, being part of, fitting in somewhere. So I go back to, you know, what seems like a very menial, actually, like you can laugh about it, what seems like a very menial experience at the age of 7 in the schoolyard. Obviously, if at the age of 42, I still think about it, it definitely impacted me, you know. But I wasn't any color, but I was being teased by a white girl, you know, and I was never that white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I have a lot of complexes, you know, my bubble butt, my big boneness. I was always taller than all the other girls. And, you know, I was being teased in the schoolyard. And I remember going blue in the face, defending myself because I was being called chocolate. Okay, it seems very funny and trivial, but I'm still thinking about it at the age of 42 years old. And this happened to me when I was 7. And, you know, I went blue in the face trying to say there's such thing as white chocolate too. There fucking is such thing as white chocolate too.
I love white chocolate.
You know, so that was a very marking event in my life. From there, I learned how to defend myself. I will say I was a bully after that. Like I was a bully. I was always Alex, the tough girl. I thought I was a gangster. that led to a lot of issues too, because I always wanted to be a gangster. I thought I was so fucking badass. I thought I was the shit. You know, and I hung out with the gangsters, you know, from a very young age. And I led this dual life from a very young age because I was
Right.
always academically successful, professionally successful. But by night, I was sleeping with dealers. I was dealing. Not a good career choice for me because I fucking did all my own stash all the time. I owed
Yeah.
so much money everywhere, you know. But you know, I always needed to be with those bad boys, like my dad.
Mhm.
So my dad
Yeah.
was pretty. My dad was straight up gangster, by the way. Like I won't get into his story, but you know, so again, being with these men that were exactly like my dad, and from a very young age, because you know, I was 10 years old, I was hanging out with 20-year-old men, and like honestly, today like a 20-year-old and a 10-year-old have nothing in fucking common
Yeah.
at all. So going back, you know, and as much as I don't say I was, you know, there's no sexual trauma or whatever, but there kind of is
Yeah.
because, you know, being 10, 12, being with 20-year-old men, you know, maybe not the intercourse wasn't there, but like, you know, making out, being given drugs, like you know that's some fucking heavy shit, you know. But to me, I thought it was totally fucking normal. I really thought it was normal. So for me, you know, I started using and boozing at the young age of 10, and I'll go back to it, you know, like again, the drugs and alcohol were never the fucking problem. I had the behavioral patterns and the character traits. You know, I my mother worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week to provide for us, and I took complete advantage of that. I was a
Mm.
master manipulator. I was cheating. I was stealing already. You know, I was shoplifting at the age of 12, 13. I was stealing money from my mother, pretending that it was to go to the school dance because Alex had to be part of, and she had to be doing everything that everybody else
Right.
was doing.
Mm.
I remember my mother, you know, and I mean, she worked, she killed herself working for us. You know, she was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 12 years old, and I still treated her like a slave. Like it did not register, you know, I treated her like she was totally fucking fine and healthy and a real little spoiled brat, you know. And I would remember, you know, my mother would be like, Alexandra, can we wait till my next paycheck for me to get you those running shoes or whatever? You know, I always had to have the dopest shit, the dopest gear. Um, and I'd just start fucking crying and like manipulating, and I would not let up until she caved. Like I was a real unappreciative fucking bitch. Like I could say that today. Um, and just everything she did for me, you know, her unconditional love. Like she's my angel today, you know, and she was actually at my celebration. I think
Yeah.
you met her.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you know, like, but but wow, looking back on it today, how unappreciative I was, you know, of her, and totally abused her and her good nature and her unconditional love. You know, I use that to my advantage, and I'll go back to my dad again. You know, as much as he wasn't a father figure in my life, he did become my party friend at the end.
Wow.
You know, and but that was all that he was good for. You know, I would, you know, go to his house at a very young age, and we just fucking start drinking from the minute I got there till I left. You know, and I actually used him for that too later on in life.
Mm.
You know, if I, oh shit, Alex has no money. You know, especially when I was in university because we were only an hour and a half train ride away. And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm fucking broke this weekend. I'll just go to dad's house and he'll fucking foot the bill for everything. Right.
Right.
So yeah, like, you know, just taking advantage of my parents like that. Like, so yeah, my behavioral patterns and my you know, when we do say we have our character defects and our character
Yeah.
traits, and there is a characteristic of an addict and an alcoholic.
Hmm.
Um, So that and also, I guess, to go back to my parents and my upbringing, they were both, my dad's a trained Shakespearean actor, and my mother was a professional ballerina and a model. So I have very artistic, liberal parents. So in terms of structure and discipline, my mom was always the one that was like, she'd rather know that I was doing it under her roof than
Oh,
out in the alleyways. So all my friends would come over, but then, she was hardly ever home. So like the parties and just like getting holes punched, all her booze stolen, her work effects stolen, like because I was hanging out with gangsters, right? Like it was just, and that was started from a very, very, very young age, and I have an older sister. So, of course, hanging out with her and her entourage, and then they become my friends. And then, got into the rave scene very early on. I always say I raved myself to a life of addiction because honestly, at the age of 10, I was only smoking weed and cigarettes and drinking occasionally. But the pot thing was big. I will go to it and say absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, marijuana was my gateway drug. But then from there in the rave scene, I've tried everything and anything under the sun. But what became my DOC later on was definitely the cocaine,
uh, that booger
because
sugar.
the booger sugar, because going to the dis-ease of perception, I was in denial for so long. But even like shit, like, everybody, my ego was so inflated, right? I was so academically successful, professionally successful, leading a dual life. I was the shit. Remember, I was a gangster. Fucking, I'm invincible. Everybody is below me and everything is beneath me.
Oh,
You know, from I got my university degree at the age of 20, still a mad fucking party animal, right? Managed to get my university degree at the age of 20, got into the federal government of Canada, and not just entry level position, I was a high ranking public service employee at a very young age. I was already a regional manager at the age of 22. All my employees were older than me. So I always had this success. My fucking head was so big. I
mm,
just power hungry, moving up the ranks, money, everything, right? All that material shit. I looked so good on fucking paper for my age, financially well off. I have nothing to fucking show for it today. Um, but that definitely plays a huge role. Um, I don't say I was an ego mate. I don't say I was egotistical or I was a fucking egomaniac. I was a narcissist, to tell you the truth. Looking back on it now, I could definitely say that for myself. I was so self-absorbed, so self-centered. The fucking world revolved around me. And yeah, so definitely, obviously, those character traits again and those
yeah.
behavioral patterns and those character defects were very prominent from a very young age.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and thank you for your vulnerability. I'm sorry to hear, about your father. And yes, I did cyber meet your mother. She's so sweet. I saw her and I'm so grateful to be a part of that celebration with you because I never really been a part of something like that. So and like kind of lead it the way you allowed me to. It was just really something else. So I want to, just side note, I want to thank you for that. Like it was a really good experience for me.
It's going down in the books. I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life.
Yes, yes. So am I. So am I. So, moving forward, oh man, I know you talked about like you were living like a dual life, and some people really believe that because they're able to do that and they're not in the streets, homeless or, in the hospital or in jail, they don't have an issue. Like, how is it that you came about that you're like, oh shit, I have a problem?
Okay, well, you just led to two things right there. I'm not in jail. I'm not a criminal like the rest of you. I'm not a
Hmm.
criminal like the rest of them. Again, going back to my disease of perception and what kept me in
Yeah.
denial for so long. So I just want to write it down because I don't want to forget. And then after that, you said the dual life,
Hmm.
and thinking that I was functional for so long, and that's really what thinking I was functional for so long. I didn't realize I didn't realize, I don't know where along that line from the age of 10, progressive disease very quickly, but I don't know, I cannot tell you where along that line it went from recreational use to daily habitual abuse. But it did. And it was my norm, and it was totally normal, and it was my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Over the span of 28 years, I didn't realize. And then this is when we go into that powerlessness, and losing total control of self and control of life.
Mm.
Using to live and living to use. It was absolutely my lifestyle. It was absolutely my identity. So, in our recovery circles, when we say you find, in recovery, we find ourselves, I go back to how could we find something we never lost? Because I never knew who the fuck I was starting to use and booze at such a young age. It had become my identity. I glorified it. I prided myself on it. I could out fuck you, out snort you, out drink you, out party you. You could stay up for 4 days. I could stay up for 5. Watch me fucking go, and this is what I prided myself on, but I also prided myself on the fact that I was a fucking whiz kid in the federal government of Canada. They were fucking grooming me. I was in accelerated executive programs to become an executive at a very young age. I wanted to be the youngest deputy head. They put so much money into me. They invested in me. They groomed me. I went on professional leadership courses. You name it, that dual life all of a sudden, and I don't know when that happened, but that dual life became no longer dual. And my poor decision, when we say paying the high costs for our poor decisions, I definitely have, because I didn't realize over the span of 28 years, I was slowly and silently killing myself and ruining myself. And, at the Team 12 meeting, I said, it's crazy how we create our own insanity, demise, and ruin. And that's exactly what I did over the span of 28 years. I ruined myself on every fucking level. So whether that be mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, right down to financially and professionally. And I didn't realize all this was going on, right? Because that powerlessness. Cocaine and alcohol consumed my every thought, so I consumed them. I was a slave to, and I was enslaved by my addiction. So that dual life at some point was not dual anymore. No judgment, stripped of any dignity I ever had. But that lack of judgment and that lack of decision making. And I mean, I'm a manager for a deputy head. I'm working in. So for you guys, it would be, at that level, it would be a commissioner of a federal government department. But I've also worked in like governors and senators' offices. And here I am going to my dealers, which is right next door to my building. I had a dealer that lived close by to one of my offices.
How convenient.
Very convenient, very convenient, I was starting to, by the end of it, in such desperation, I was committing white collar crime. I was defrauding the government. I was using my government travel card to travel to the liquor store and take out cash advances. I was using taxpayer funds to fund my fucking habits.
Right.
Remember, here's Alexandra, high-ranking public service employee, makes a pretty good fucking salary. Let's get straight here. Nothing to show for it by the end. And then, you mentioned homelessness. I was near homelessness. One of my wake-up calls in November 2016, I was fucking high as a kite, sitting in my house at 9 o'clock in the morning, my door knocked, and it was a bailiff with a notice of foreclosure on my condo. I hadn't been paying my mortgage in 7 months. So me and my daughter were near homelessness. At that point, I was like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? You almost have you and your daughter living in the street. I actually stopped. I stopped cold right there. Like that fucking was sobering, man.
Yeah.
That was a sobering moment. However, that lasted 28 days. You know, I had somebody that was in the program, that somebody who I had met in active addiction, a younger girl. We stayed in contact. She was dating my little brother, who was one of my best drugging friends, you know.
Right.
She was dating my little brother, and but we had stayed in contact. She went completely off the rails one night, committed herself, went to rehab, and then she was in a fellowship. I stayed in touch with her, and I contacted her, but you know, like the intent was there, but that whole turning it over part, like I didn't know any of that shit, you know, except she was able to plant a seed, because I'll come back to that, you know, 4 months later. I stayed clean 28 days. I went with her to a masquerade ball that New Year's Eve. I got high all fucking day before going to that fellowship's masquerade ball. Except, you know, 2 hours beforehand, I was like, okay, if I don't do anything for 2 hours, I'm clean. I'll fit in. I was still wearing, how befitting, you know, what an analogy. I was the only one that wasn't wearing a mask, but I was the only one that was still wearing a mask in a complete fake and facade, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 hit, Alex couldn't wait quick enough to jump out of there and fucking go on a rampage. And then like that led to my next 4 months of, you know, my final hurrah, I guess you could say. Apparently I needed to get it right out of my fucking system. But, you know, in that time, I was starting to get back into another codependent relationship. I, you know, the week before April 22nd, 2017, you know, in such an act of desperation again, you know, like now I'm just at the end. I didn't know it was the end, but I'm just drawing at strings now. I was a deplorable mother already for my daughter's first 10 years of life. You know, I was in pure active addiction, and the shit that I was letting happen in my house, the people I was letting in my house, the shit that she had to endure and witness, and be a part of, totally not fair to her. However, at the end, I was such in desperation. Now, like, there's not even any more judgment left whatsoever. You know, at work, I was starting to go in on the weekends, going through my employees' drawers, stealing their fucking coffee money. You know, $5 bills here and there. Like, this is bad shit. Because I have a security clearance that gives me 24/7 access to a building, like I'm working for a top dog, you know?
That is crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, but again, I'm invincible. This shit's not catching up to me, because don't think it just started then. You know, this has been going on for years.
Yeah.
You know, up until this point, I'm 18 years in public service, right? So anyways, but my dealers weren't even coming to my house anymore. Like, that's how bad it got. When your dealer has cause for concern about you, there's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
When they're telling you, Alex, get the fuck out of my face and get off the street, there's a fucking problem.
Right.
Alex, you're not doing good. There's a fucking problem. Like, this is a dealer, you know? Not my friend.
Yeah.
But you know, so in one really, really final act of desperation, I drove across town. I picked up off of somebody I didn't even know. And, you know, for the amount of years that I've been putting cocaine up my nose up until that point, I don't know what I fucking put up my nose, but in a drug-induced psychosis, I thought the only way to get down from that high that day was to take my own life. Luckily enough, I didn't. I'm here to tell the tale. I recognize that my higher power has always fucking been with me. But on that day of April 22nd, 2017, a week later, um, a few things were going through my mind. And I'll go to my grave convinced and sold on the fact that there was a power greater than myself in that room that day. Mm-hmm. So even before walking through the doors of a room of recovery that day, that exact same day, and never turning back, I had already done my step 1, 2, and 3 unconsciously to me, because I didn't even know what the fucking steps were up until that point.
Right.
But up until that point, how come in lead up? It'll always be inexplicable. I will not tell you why it's that day out of all fucking days. Because up until that point, by the end of it, between every rail and every fucking swig of whiskey I was taking, and that could be at 2-minute intervals, like it could be at 5-minute intervals, that was my last one. This is it, Alex. This is your last one. You can't live this way anymore. But it never fucking was until April 22nd, 2017. And I seriously was lying there, rushing like a banshee, trying to fucking go to sleep. Jaw clenched, fucking hot sweats, cold sweats. I just remember like turning in my bed, and I'll never say I did not get down on my knees to surrender, but I surrendered and I turned it over. And admonition to self, man, that was the most empowering fucking thing I could have ever done for myself, because after that moment forward and every decision I've made since then, empowering decision I've made since then, all stems to that one empowering decision that day. And me just saying, I cannot fucking live like this anymore. That life, if you could even call it that, no longer serves a purpose. And from that point onward, that woman that I used to be completely ceased to exist. And now I go back to recovery as a transformative process in and of itself. But real transformation requires real honesty. And that fucking moment that I told myself, Alex, you have a fucking problem and you need help, and you are a fucking junkie and an alcoholic and you need help now. That was the most, like I said, empowering fucking thing I could have ever done for myself. And, in my head, in my thought process, and I could vividly remember my thought process because, it's all my whys, right? One, that life no longer served a purpose. I cannot live like that. My daughter was going to be 10 years old in 2 months' time at that time. Now she's 13. She's going to be 14 this August. But who the fuck am I? I'm not the woman I'm raising. When she's about to be 10, I started living this way at the age of 10. There's no way I want her to live this fucking life. So I got to start walking the walk and talking the talk and step up to the plate and be a fucking parent.
Wow.
And take some responsibility, because I'm a deplorable parent up until that point. Fucking shit. I thought I was such a good parent, because on paper, or she was in competitive soccer, competitive synchronized swimming. I was bringing her everywhere. Fucking drunk and high and putting her life in freaking danger, the shit that I was letting go on in my house, and she's very wise for her age. She had to grow up very quickly because there's a lot of time she's taking care of me. She was babysitting everybody else's fucking kids in my house, while we're getting high and drunk in the living room, all night. And, just so that was a big thing for me. What I'm doing to myself is not fair to me, but it's not fucking fair to her. And I got to start giving her the mother she so deserves, especially that, I'm a single mother. Our bond was always tight. It's always just been the two of us. Again, going back to, all the men that in my life, the codependency, we all facilitated and enabled each other's addictions. Her dad, no different. He was only supposed to be a one-night stand. Turned out to be a 3-year relationship, way too long. Has his own issues, but not. He is there. I'll give him that. They have a good relationship. I allow it. I would never take I would never take that relationship away from them. The issue is between me and him. We will never be
Right.
friends. However, we will forever have a familial connection. And that was a lot of
Right.
fucking growth for me coming into recovery. Although recently I had to put up a boundary with him, and I do not communicate him and my daughter can communicate together. She's old enough now, but I don't tolerate narcissistic abuse. And especially when you're still in active addiction. And it's not healthy for my mental state, like at all. Our communications are never productive, and they don't lead to any kind of resolve but so I had to make that decision, but I will never take their relationship away from them. Just like my
Right.
mother did. My mother's the one that ensured I maintain that relationship with my father. So she's a great role model. My mother is a great role model. As much as she asks herself, what could I have done differently? I always got to appease her and say, Mom, like there's nothing you could have done differently that would have changed the way I turned out. But look at me today, man. You fucking raised me right.
Yeah.
In the end, you know, I had to go through that shit. I God's will and way for me, right? Like that's what I totally realized today. And that even going back to like, had I known my life was going to be this great today, I would have done this fucking years ago. Just
Right.
wasn't my time. It just wasn't my time. However, now I've been given the chance to recover. It's a fucking gift to be in recovery because you only get so many chances until your chances run out. And
Exactly.
trust me, my chances could have run out fucking a million times over, right? Over the span of 28 years. But here I am, right? So it is the greatest gift, and I absolutely have to give it to keep it. And I know we'll talk about Sober Active Canada in a minute, but if maybe I could just go back to everything catches up to you. I did end up losing my job in the federal government,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to lose your job in the federal government. Once you're in, you're in. Except Alex gets fired. I didn't know. Luckily enough, I was 1 month into my recovery, um, but I got called into the big boss's office, and I even made the joke like it's not every day that Alex gets summons into the big boss's office, and he's like, sit down, and within 15 minutes, I was being escorted out of the building.
Oh shit.
Um, I still had like texts to my dealers on my BlackBerry. I'm like deleting them because they're about to take my BlackBerry, everything, right? They didn't even let me pick up, they only let me pick up my purse and escorted me out of the building, and I was to never come back. And you know what? Like the thought crossed my mind. I was like, holy shit, I could just take this severance package and fucking run with it.
Mm.
But instead, I said, you know what? This gives me the opportunity to work on myself, mind, body, and soul, because I need to fucking do some serious work on myself day in and day out. And that's what I did, coming into recovery. And I guess this will be a good segue to get into Sober Active Canada too. Coming into recovery, I was 225 pounds. I definitely say that woman represented, how we say our outer self is a reflection of our inner self.
Big time.
I was done. I was haggard. I was tired. I looked like I was 50 years old. I don't know if you've seen my before pictures, but I look completely different today.
I have.
Um, and when we say real transformation requires real honesty, I was brutally and rigorously honest with myself.
Facts.
But mind, body, and soul, right? And I have a three-pronged disease. I have a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual malady. And I can't get away from not attacking those three on the daily. So I do work a trifecta program. Nutrition and fitness have proven viable approaches to my recovery, complemented by my 12-step program.
Right.
I think I need that trifecta because our mind, body, and soul works in synergy. And recovery is getting back to a harmonious, balanced, and aligned state. It's not about abstinence. And I know the other day I heard you guys on Alika's live talking sobriety versus recovery. And And, it's not just about abstinence. It's about creating a quality of life for yourself and a healthy life. Recovery is absolutely a fucking lifestyle to me. I eat, breathe, sleep it. Those 12 spiritual principles from my spiritual program are practiced in all my fucking affairs. People often ask me if bodybuilding is integral to my recovery. It's fucking intrinsic. It's one and the same. That's how I approach my life today. So going back to it, I was 225 pounds when I walked into the rooms. I was, in retrospect, all those years combined, it was a culmination of 28 years of substance abuse, a complete lack of self-respect for myself. Therefore, I did not demand or command respect in return, nor did I give it. A complete disregard for my health and wellness, my safety and my security, and that of my daughters, stripped of any dignity I might have ever had. And by the end of it, not even a care in the world to take care of myself and basic hygiene. Like, I was smelt like shit. I didn't shower for days. I was shitting and pissing myself. Like, it was just, I completely let myself go until I turned with complete abandon my my care over and my protection to the care and will of God, And so early on in my recovery, I had read John C. Maxwell's quote, and I still live by these words today. And it was, change something you do daily, change your life. Your success lies in your daily routine. And that's when I went fucking downtown on myself. Mental exercise, spiritual exercise, and physical exercise day in and day out. And remember, I have a 3-pronged dis-ease, and I always put the hyphen mark, me and my play on words, but I always put a hyphen mark in the word disease because I have a dis-ease of self. I'm uneasy with myself, and going to that, and that bit of self, that lack of self-respect, and now being a certified health and lifestyle coach, obviously, and I only work with recovering alcoholics and addicts because of my own personal journey. And I truly do think my higher power gifted me with that calling. It's because the goal is not to be clean or sober. The goal is to love yourself enough to live an addiction-free or alcohol-free life. So as much as drugging and drinking was my lifestyle, recovery today is my lifestyle, my life and my style. But, and I wear it loud and proud. I work the shit out of my program too. I know what you were saying at the beginning, the intensity, the energy. It's just because I'm chasing my recovery, like I'm chasing that next high and drunk. And I mean, I was fucking pretty intense. I was intense in active addiction, but I'm fucking gonna be intense about my active recovery, So yeah, so today I'm a competitive bodybuilder, and I know like last time we had spoken about that and how I go back to, today I understand thy will be done. It's all in God's will and way for me. I ask God every fucking morning, to show me divine guidance in carrying out whatever message and whatever work he intends of me to do in, around, and through me. The logistics, the timelines, the time frame, the details, the outcomes, that's all in his hands. All I got to do in the interim is keep doing the next right thing. And when it's supposed to happen, the next right thing is going to happen. Again, half measures avail me absolutely nothing. I've witnessed that over 28 years. So I'm all in or nothing at all. There's no half-ass in this shit, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is fucking work. day in and day out, but it's the most worthwhile and fulfilling work that you could ever do. We are the greatest projects we'll ever work on. And it is, you know, not only of self, but to be serving, you know, to be of service to others. And I go back to, you know, I had been a public service employee for 18 years. I'm back in the public service today, actually. So like we say, you know, those promises, miracles do exist, because somebody
Yeah.
had been following my journey on social media, and out of the blue one Monday morning had sent me a messenger from Facebook and just said, Alex, where are you and what are you doing now? And within 3 weeks, I was his senior policy advisor. So not going back into the federal government at entry level, like I thought I was going to have to, because now this is a year and a half later that I've been unemployed, you know. The same level I was at, working for a deputy head again, but him telling me, you know, when he brought me in, him telling me, I know you come with your challenges. We don't have to talk about them. I'm a firm believer in people do change and deserve second chances. And I know I'm bringing you back at your best. And we're going to ensure we keep you at your best for you and your daughter. Everybody fucking struggles. Everybody has a struggle. So we don't have to talk about yours, but just like talk about fucking angel put on my path and those promises, right? But I noticed a direct correlation between the amount of work I put in and the
Yes.
rewards that I reap. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as I start getting complacent or chilling it a
Right.
little bit, so there is no fucking room for complacency and my program. So now going back to, you know, my competitive bodybuilding, I'm a competitive bodybuilder. Never would have I thought that fucking 4.5 years ago, let alone going to represent my country on Team Canada at Musclemania Universe in Vegas in November. This shit is not shit that I fucking ever even dreamt of. That's
Mm-hmm.
happening to me, you know? But, you know, like we were saying, and how, you know, those principles and practicing them in all my affairs and the outcome being in God's hands, you know, what I attune myself and align myself with today are the lines into my future. I speak my life into existence. So when I say I'm going for my, you know, this year I'm going for my pro card run on December 11th, 2021, Alex is going for her pro card. But that was a lot to do with, you know, being at this point, this juncture in my journey. And when I mean I'm going pro, it's not only to go on stage and get a pro card,
Every
it's
level.
going every fucking level, you know. So again, going profound to grow pro. So that's when I got, you know, I'll give him a shout out, Jay Sachs. I am Jay Sachs, an amazing mindset expert. You know, just finished 3 months working with him, doing a lot of inner child work and stuff too with him. It was quite an experience.
Nice.
Um, Going back to basics, doing my fucking formal step work again with a new sponsor. Because I got to go profound to grow pro, and that's going pro in all my affairs. So whether it be motherhood, whether it be in my relationships, my associations, how I work with my sponsees, at my career, my job, my regular job, my expansion of Sober Active Canada. It's
Yeah.
going fucking pro in all my affairs, because what I do is I embody, manifest, and convey the pro Alex on that stage. The outcome, that shit's not up to me. So I just got to keep doing all the things in between, keep doing the next right thing, and the next right thing will happen, right? That's how I live my life today. Honestly, like it's all God's will and way for me. It's funny because my concept of God changed over time. Now it definitely is God, but you know, at the beginning, my higher power was actually going out into nature. Remember, I was 225 pounds. Don't think I just the next morning, Alex is a competitive bodybuilder. I
Right.
started by by yoga and connecting my mind, body, and soul. I was so fucking unhealthy. I couldn't do 2 minutes of cardio. You know, I was so unhealthy. I was malnourished. People always ask me, you know, Alex, how could you be so how could you be such a cokehead and be so fat? I will tell you what, for those 4 or 5 days that I was on a fucking coke and drinking bender, not eating, come day 5, 6, before it was time to start all over again, maybe I should get a bit of food into my body and take a nap or for an hour or two. But in that 2 hour time span, and you know how we say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Glutton, fucking everything in excess, right? The seeds of illusion we have, right? Never enough. But in that 2 hour time span, Alex could eat fucking 4 pizzas to herself, 6 poutines. I don't know if you know what a poutine is. And he was cheese curds, gravy, and fries. A Quebec delicatessen, like it's from Quebec. It's the fucking fattiest shit you could ever eat. But you know, could eat 3 of those to myself. The pop, the chips, everything I was putting in my body, right down from the drugs and alcohol to the fucking food, was junk and garbage. No shit, I was living a waste case life. So when I say I rid myself of all toxicity 4 years and a month ago, I didn't only rid myself from toxic people, places, and things, but it was substances, thoughts, right down to the fucking food I consumed. So when I adopted clean living, I adopted clean eating. I live clean 100. I haven't as so much had an Advil or refined sugar in fucking 4 years.
Wow.
So that's funny because that was a big decision for me last weekend to get my vaccine, you know, for my first shot, because it was putting foreign matter into my body for the first time in 4 years. And it was a huge decision for me, but I did it because it was one step closer to me being reunited with my mother again. I haven't seen her in a year. It's only one step closer fucking putting my foot in the gym again. But we're still in lockdown here, you know. We're starting to deconfine now, and some restrictions have been lifted. My gym's opening back up on May 31st, next Monday. I cannot fucking wait. But one step closer to life resembling some kind of normalcy pre-pandemic. I know it'll never be normal again, but when I looked at it, it's small price to pay. Anyways, I put so much worse shit in my body over the span of 28 years and I'm still alive. I might as well fucking do it. You know, it's a small price to pay to get my fucking life back. It's been hard. It's, you know, it's taken its mental toll on me included. And I'm pretty fucking strong person mentally, you know, but this winter I was in a serious state of depression, you know, and isolated and yeah. So
I know that last year was really tough, you know, especially towards the end of it for everybody with the lockdowns and stuff. But you know, I know you hadn't really put any foreign substance into your body. I know you weren't really feeling good the past couple of days, but I'm glad you look really good now. Go ahead and flex on them real quick one time. Go ahead and flex. Hey, that's right. Go ahead.
No, I haven't lifted weights in you know what, I took this lockdown 4.0. I took it, I was finishing my program with Jay. I took it as a period. I embraced it for what it was worth. I took a little step back because anyways I'm at 29 weeks out to my competition, so we're all fucking good there. Yes, you know, I really you know, this winter when I was in my state of depression, you know, I could definitely see some behavioral patterns coming back. You know, I came from such an emotional high, you know, came back home to reality, to fucking lockdown, and totally crashed, you know. But I could see myself my addictions manifesting in different forms. So that body dysmorphia, I have you know, if you're looking for Alex and she's disappeared, just not tonight because I'm in Insta jail for some reason off my personal account. I have no fucking idea how that happened. We'll have to talk to Marty about that one. But I don't know why, but it's funny because like I said, perfect timing, right? This week, one of my goals this week was to spend less time on my personal account and to really focus on Sober Active Canada. And then lo and behold, well, now I'm being forced to take less time, like to be less on my social media account until it fucking opens up again, right? So,
Yeah.
but
Everything just seems to be working in your favor when you're doing the right things, even though if it's forced, you're just like, hey, you just accept it
yeah,
for what it is.
yeah. So, and then I saw like going to body dysmorphia, or if ever you're looking for me and there's a serious, like I'm down in the dumps or whatever, like all natural peanut butter is good in moderation, like 2 tablespoons a day. But I could literally just eat that and not eat anything else and like go through tubs of it, like 3 tubs in 2 days. Like, and, but so going back to now fitness and nutrition, right? Like nutrition, I noticed is so vital, crucial, not only on my mental state, not only on my physical state, but is equally important on my mental state.
Right,
So when we
right.
go back to no foreign matter in my body, I'm such a clean eater. However, that got me into trouble at the beginning because of my addictive mind, right? My addict
Ooh.
nature, my addict brain. I went into orthorexia. So yes, I lost 100 pounds in my first year of recovery, but that's because my addict brain kicked in. And orthorexia is actually an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating.
Oh, wow.
But bodybuilding helped me get out of that because I did have to start putting certain things back in my body. Actually, for my first competition, it's funny because that was only 15 months. 15 months before that, before stepping on a stage, I was 225 pounds. And then 15 months later, I'm stepping on stage, but I actually had to bulk up for my first competition because I was too
That's
skinny.
that's crazy. That's so much weight lost and then added in 15 months. That's intense, man. And that just basically describes you intensity. Like you just go pro on every fucking thing that you do. And that's why I knew having you on here was just gonna be such a fucking treat. So I just want to say, I just want to say that before I ask you the grand finale question of questions,
But did
I'm
you
gonna
want to go into Sober Active Canada, or was that part of the grand finale questions?
no, that's what I said. Before we go into the grand
Okay.
finale questions, I want to get into Sober Active Canada. Who is it for? And what are you seeing like the benefits of it right now for people and for yourself?
Okay. So Sober Active Canada is my ultimate service work. I do want to, so the active sober movement is huge internationally, especially in the States. In the States as well, there's recovery-based gyms like Recovery, Temperance Training, the Phoenix. There's a gamut of offerings in terms of active sober movement. There was nothing in Canada yet. One of my great friends who I met on Instagram, social media, Tom Shanahan from New York City, Manhattan, is the author of a book called, and it's besides the big book, it's my second reference guide. It's my second recovery Bible. I use it as a reference guide today. Very detailed. A lot of research went into it, but it's Spiritual Adrenaline, a lifestyle plan to nourish and strengthen your recovery. And he's been a great source of inspiration to me, a great role model. Same thing with at day 30. One of the first sober accounts I ever followed was Marv out of San Diego, Run Rep at a Time. Check him out. He's amazing. Also recovering addict alcoholic, getting his degree to be a chiropractor now, but he has a degree in kinesiology. So on the fitness side, so my whole 1 day, 1 rep, 1 meal at a time, definitely attributable to him. And then my own competition coach, Carly Young, out of Boise, Idaho. I actually met her as my sober sister first, and we
Wow.
became very close. She became a role model and a mentor to me, because she is her own gym owner, but she also has a competition team. So that actually bodes well for me, because she understands my brain, because I can go back into that instant gratification and my results should
Right.
be fucking now, Carly. Don't I look stage ready today? But she understands my mind. She's going to be hitting 11 years sober next month. So,
Oh
so
yeah.
I have very influential people in my life, from very early on, and you could see their influences in my work. So yeah, the active sober movement's huge. There was nothing in Canada. Tom actually started running Sober Active New York City, except now he's merged with the Phoenix. So he's the director of programming out in New York City, in New York for the Phoenix. But, you know, we were just like, why don't you just fucking start something and bring it to your Canadian fellows, right? Bring the active sober movement to Canada, Alex. Like, you're so inspiring just in your own personal journey. You got what it takes. You know, I am a certified health and lifestyle coach too. So,
Oh yeah.
Sober Active Canada is a recovery-based community, national nonprofit, open to all A's, all ways, any addiction. So whether it be substance addiction or process addiction, gambling, sex, you name it, addiction is addiction, recovery is recovery. Open to all A's, always. So any addiction, any pathway to recovery, because all pathways are viable. So I don't care if you're
Right.
sober curious, if you're alcohol-free living, and any stage of recovery. And we foster health, hope, and healing. The primary principle is heal thyself. Healthy self, heal thyself. The words are comprised of each other. I don't think you can get away from the fact, again, going back to my own personal experience, but you know, physical activity is so huge. Good physical health, and same thing with nutrition. Good physical health promotes good mental health, and good mental health promotes good physical health, and vice
Indeed.
versa. Um, so on the platform on Instagram, I do share stories of experience, strength, and hope. Everything has a sports flair to it,
Yeah.
obviously. So my recovery MVPs on a rotational basis, every 2 weeks, I feature one woman and then 2 weeks later, I'll feature a male doing some amazing work in the recovery community. And like I say, recover we, because I'm totally recognizant of the fact if it wasn't for the power of we, there would absolutely be no me.
Right.
Recover we builds community and unity. So, and that come together and communication. So my background's in communications and I'm a writer editor by trade as well. So, but you know, so giving people that platform to share their experience, strength, and hope, but to also carry the message of health, hope, and healing. And
Right.
you know, the benefits of fitness and nutrition, but not only that, you know, what I call the sober grind. So again, going back to the mental exercise, the spiritual exercise, and the physical exercise, the that they do on a daily basis, and how they strengthen and nourish their recovery. It's lifestyle management. It's a lifestyle plan. You cannot escape the fact that self-care is an important phase of recovery. And I
Exactly.
don't mean bubble baths and chocolate. I mean mental self-care, physical self-care, spiritual self-care, social self-care, like we're doing here, connecting with each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and emotional self-care and practical self-care. You know, there's 6 elements of self-care, and self-care is absolutely crucial. It's a crucial component of recovery. And we go back to recovery as a transformative process in and of itself.
Right.
So yeah, it's all about lifestyle management and maintaining that recovery lifestyle. And also, I do put out a lot of resource-based information. So stuff like fitness, fitness in recovery, nutrition in recovery, setting boundaries, all all the on all the levels and all the self-care tips and tricks and whatever, and so we do put out resource-based content. But holding, and now not so much because of COVID, and like in Canada, it's hella more restrictions than in the United
Right.
States. Like, you guys seem like COVID never happened all of a sudden, but
I
in
know.
Canada, we're still in lockdown. Restrictions are just starting to lift now where I am in Quebec, but I do host locally based events, and those events are actually either a group physical activity or a beginner workout session coupled with a 12-step style format meeting. But they're all topical discussion meetings on, again, going back to self-care as an important phase of recovery, fitness in recovery, nutrition in recovery, boundary setting, goal setting, intention setting. So again, that whole lifestyle management component. And but I've been bringing them. I was part of the Just for 2-4 movement last month on April 24th. That brought the joy of recovery and sobriety to social media for that 24-hour period. And I did host my first virtual workout and meeting. And I now
Nice.
have them on a monthly basis. So I did have my second one 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to have another one in June. But I think what I'm going to do with that one, because I just got a call from a lady that was coming last year, a former crack addict. And it's just so nice to see and bring us together, right? And connect to higher self and higher power when we do like those, I do a 5-minute guided meditation, and then like the yoga, the beginner yoga or light stretching session, but getting our bodies moving, but also connecting to nature because I host them in parks and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think what I'm going to do for my next one is actually I'm going to have it outdoors, because by then in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to get together out here where I am, and have a group on Parliament Hill. I have them on Parliament Hill. There's a beautiful park beside the Parliament building. So that's like your Washington, I'm in the nation's capital. So that's like the White House, Parliament Hill.
Yeah.
So up on Parliament Hill, and but I'm going to zoom it out. So I'm going to
Sick.
have it virtual and
Physical.
virtual, yeah, and physical, yeah. And then
Awesome. I'll be tuned
obviously,
into that.
yeah, and then obviously have start organizing events all over Canada. I want to get out to British Columbia as soon as we can travel again. And yeah, hooking up with some cool people. There's Church 444 out of Hamilton, Ontario, who owns a yoga studio, who also does live events and stuff. And Joey there is in recovery, so he's offered me his space to host some kind of Sober Active Canada workshop there. So yeah, so I'm just getting that out there. But my ultimate goal is to open Canada's first recovery-based gym.
That'll be incredible. So big things coming for sure. I'm gonna make sure that I put all the links to your Instagram, to the Sober Active Canada, the website, whatever it may be. Shoot me those links so I could put them in the descriptions below, so people, in case they didn't catch the names, they'll go ahead and have a link to click on it and check you out. So the last grand finale question, and I'm sure you know what, you probably have an answer ready for me. So there's 3 things in life that I feel are guaranteed and are marked in our gravestone. And that is our birthday, the day we passed, and that dash in the middle that we overlook. What is that dash? What do you want to be remembered by? What is that dash going to represent for you?
I just want one person to be impacted, and say, that Alex Talbot, I'll forever remember her for enabling me to empower myself to make health conscious and wise decisions and live a life unaddicted. And if I could just close on that, and going back to wrap up my entire share today, again, going back to that bit, we are the greatest projects we'll ever work on. Anything is fucking possible. I'm living proof because this life today, I would have never even thought it was possible, plausible, or fucking even fathomable 4 years ago.
Oh.
And if we go back to one last thing, you know, this is my biggest message here out of my entire share, and just, you know, from my own personal experience. Self-care is self-love. Self-love is self-respect, and self-respect is self-discipline. Respect yourself and respect your efforts. And once you have all those four under your belt, there lies true fucking power.